All right, today, guys, we are talking about our 3D letters that we're going to start creating. Um, Here are a few of the examples of things that were done in sculpture class. So the idea is that you're going to choose your letter that you would like to do. It could also be a number. Some people do more than one. You don't have to do more than one. You can do just one is fine. But you can see all the different ways that people have done letters. When you are choosing your letter, some things that you want to consider is, will it be able to stand up on its own? You know, you see like this A here, that stands up really well. But you also want to consider the font too. Like, this is a really great font. Is it going to stand up? This one does a pretty good job, but if it were to slant any more than that, I feel like it probably would fall over. So think in terms of like letters that maybe would be more difficult to get to stand up. A lot of times students say, oh, I'm going to do an O, that'll be so easy. But the O doesn't always stand up on its own. Think about the fonts. You know, if you did an O, you could give it some shape, but have like the bottom of it have like a flat surface so that it doesn't fall over. Okay. Think about those fonts. So some of them are much more interesting than others. Other things you want to consider is the thickness of each letter. If it gets really thin in some areas, that will be a lot harder, which is why a lot of these are probably going to look a little bit bulkier instead of having some really thin areas, okay? And with that in mind, you can get started on your project. Okay, so I just wanted to touch a little bit on the font when you are choosing your letters that you want to do for your project. So my first name is Tanya, so I'm going to try to do some sort of a T. So I'm trying to get some ideas on different fonts that might be neat to do with my letter. This one I think is a pretty nice font. I might go with that. So I'm going to save that one to my desktop just in case I choose that one. I like this one because I like that it's got a little bit of decorative edges. It also has a nice wider base down at the bottom. Whereas if I went with something like this T, this one is going to be top heavy. And so it may have a tendency to fall over when I make it into a sculpture. That's kind of a neat looking one. If you remember back when I said some fonts get a little bit thinner, so right in this area, that would be pretty difficult to do. It's not that it can't be done, but you would have to have a lot of patience to be able to do that. Sometimes you won't be able to get your fingers into these little tiny places either. And when it's thin, it's just not as stable. This is really cool, but I won't be able to get that to stand up on its own unless I flatten out the bottom. I really like this one as well. That's kind of neat. The only issue I have with this one is, again, the bottom is probably not very wide compared to the top, and so it may be top heavy and it might fall over from time to time. I really like this one. Let's see. That one. See if there's any that I should shy away from. If it's got wobbly edges like that, that will probably be a little bit difficult to do. I would recommend going with something a little bit more of a straightish edge. Now that doesn't mean you can't do things like an S. Let's try an S in here. Let's see what that looks like. So you can absolutely do this. Yes, we have some curved surfaces here, but that's okay. It's just that they're not wobbly. You know, if you try to do something like this with all those little lines coming off of it, that would be extremely hard. Again, here's that thin line. Can it be done? Yep, it can. Just remember, it's going to be a little more difficult. And let's see. Those look pretty good. Let's try the O, because we do have people that do that sometimes, and then they want to fall over. So like these probably aren't going to work because they're not going to stand up right. This one potentially could, as long as you flattened out that edge. So be thinking, okay, what font do I like? That's pretty neat. Could I do that? Yeah. This one would be really, really hard. Okay. You can do this several ways. You can try to find one on Google. You could also just go to like a Keynote or something like that. And type in your letter. Yeah. See how big we can make it. You can find lots of cool fonts even just inside of some of your programs on your computer. That one probably won't work very well, again, because of all the wiggles and on the stuff like that on the edge. But that's why you have to kind of try out these different fonts. See how they look. This one does have some wobble on it, but I think it probably could be done. Maybe a little top heavy. Definitely won't stand upright on its own. So keep playing around, try to figure out what's going to work the best for you. You could print this off and trace it onto your paper if you wanted, but you'd want to make sure that it fits the entire paper. Let's see if we go pages. So that's pretty good size. You can see it right there. You want to go as big as you possibly can if you decide to trace it. And then from there you could just print it. And then I would show you how to trace that probably in another video. All right, happy hunting for letters.